Well, so let me just begin by saying this is the first time I've done something like this. So please forgive me if it comes across as somewhat, I don't know, lacking in fluency or structure, but it's important for me to speak out, and so it's important for me to put my voice forward in whatever form, just so that I can say, not in my name. What is happening is not in my name. Perhaps I should begin by saying that, my name is Howard Cohen, and I'm Jewish, and I was raised Jewish, and I'll never deny my heritage, my tradition, and though I'm not religious, in fact, I'm more taken by the message in Buddhism, but nevertheless, I'm proud of my Jewish roots, and I'll never deny them. But I am not Zionist, and I'll go further than that and say that I'm anti-Zionist. I oppose the Zionist project. I oppose an ethnocentric, supremacist, colonial project based originally upon the notions of European colonialism. And I oppose such a project that can oppress so absolutely and so relentlessly the indigenous people of the land, and can treat them as, and consider them in such a subhuman way. This dehumanization that is so prescient is a way of being able to reduce any form of conscience for the behaviour. And perhaps I should also begin by saying that I lived in Israel for 21 years. I arrived in 1996 at the age of 30, and I was there until 2018. The very beginning of 2018. So that's actually, 22 years. So I have a good understanding of Israeli society and the mentality, and perhaps I'll speak about that a little more afterwards. But ultimately, I left Israel. The main reason was because I didn't see a place for someone like me with my sense of morality and ethical values being there as a basically as not just an outsider, but as someone who is considered by many, if not most, Israelis as a form of traitor, because you oppose the you oppose basically what is the accepted ideology and behaviour of the day there, which is an apartheid reality in every sense. I mean, it's a different apartheid inside Israel to what it is in the West Bank, and of course Gaza is completely even. Well, I don't know if you can. Yeah, well, Gaza is a point in question of its own, and we know what's happening there now. again I'll speak about. But it's apartheid on different levels, but everywhere, both in Israel and in the occupied West Bank, and of course Gaza's been basically an occupied concentration camp for de facto for the last 17 years, and one could say far beyond that. So I think that this is my belief, that as a Jew, I have a responsibility to speak out and say not in my name, because I don't want in any way Zionism and Judaism being conflated, and certainly no, I don't want in any way this state, which is a rogue state, one could say, in terms of its behaviour. It's beyond the pale of what any decent person could accept as an acceptable morality. But I don't want in any way the representatives of the state or those who defend it to basically say that that they are speaking in my name, because they are not. And I know of many, and I'm in contact with many Jews who feel the same way. So, I mean, in this last year especially, you've had when what was not known to so many outside of Israel has become, I mean, it has become now most widely known about the apartheid behaviour. So, and especially, of course, the wholesale destruction and annihilation of Gaza, its ethnic cleansing and its destruction of all its heritage sites, of all its cultural sites, of all its educational sites, of all its health centres, and of course of so many tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, because we don't know the true number. We know there's many thousands under the rubble. We know that there's many thousands who have lost their lives, who have not been reported because of lack of health care, because of their sustained injuries, because of malnutrition, because of kind of newborns who haven't been able to receive the nutrition and the milk and the treatment that they require, because of those suffering from chronic illnesses which haven't been able to receive medicines and any kind of healthcare. So we know that even though the official number has remained at 42,000 for months now, we know that the real number is probably well over 100,000. So what I wanted to say was that the awareness of what Israel is as an entity in a neo-colonial kind of reality, because I think this reality of the last year, especially, has shown us with the way that the collusion, the complicity of the West, and the way that it has facilitated so absolutely Israel's behaviour. I mean, of course, the US with its supply of arms, but also Germany, also the UK, France, and many Western powers, especially. So I think that's shown us all that we are still very, very much in the colonial mindset and the colonial discourse, and the colonial belief that you can still have these bastions of where you can where basically behaviour becomes acceptable that would perhaps in their own countries be unacceptable, but becomes acceptable in order to become a bastion of their own interests, geopolitical interests, and larger aims in the area. So, I mean, that effectively is also what colonialism was all about. I mean, but of course Israel is if you like the de facto colonial. Its colonialism today is very much still in the making. I mean, they haven't finished the Zionist project has nowhere near finished its aims. Its aims, of course, is for the ethnic cleansing to continue, as we've seen Gaza being today the case in question. But of course, while Gaza, while the horrors go on in Gaza, the indescribable horrors, the unspeakable horrors, because we can't even really give a name to what is happening. We can't really describe or label it because it's beyond words, it's beyond language. Just as the Holocaust, of the Jews was beyond language, if you like. But this is the Holocaust. What's happening in Gaza today, and there's no question about it. It is the Holocaust, and so with all this, but I mean, of course, whilst this is taking place in Gaza, you have also unspeakable horrors and ethnic cleansing and violence and killings, death, of course, all taking place with impunity against the Palestinians in the West Bank as well. There's the amount of villages that have been cleansed in the West Bank, the amount of destruction that has taken place there, both by the army, the IOF, and also by the settlers, whose behaviour is also facilitated by the army, because often they're either working in collusion or the army is standing by and allowing the settlers to carry out their heinous acts as they watch on and prevent any kind of resistance against the behaviour. So you have also unspeakable horrors. You have thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of arrests of innocent Palestinians that have been basically imprisoned, or if you want to use the current word, kidnapped by the Israeli authorities, and are inside the most unimaginable conditions in the prisons. I mean, their reports have come out. I mean, we know that they've been violently and sadistically, many of them raped, with objects of various kinds. This is for the sadistic pleasure of the prison officers and the regime. So objects of various kinds being basically rammed up them and causing them injury or death. And I mean, this is not me speaking. We know that reports have just come out. It was only a few weeks ago that because of the actual evidence of this having taken place, the the Israeli authorities couldn't close their eyes because it came out. It came out in the media. They had to act, and so they wanted to arrest those. There was a group of army officers or prison officers who were responsible for this, and they wanted to put them under to arrest them. And of course, you had, I say of course because this is Israeli society, you had a whole uprising from within the very grain of Israeli society to protect these monsters who'd been doing these acts. And you had members of the Israeli Knesset, both not just from the extremist parties but also from the Likud, who came out to defend these monsters. And reports, many reports have come out of the prisoners being savagely beaten, being pissed upon on a daily basis, being spat upon, being abused, being humiliated, and being starved. We've seen pictures of prisoners who have come out looking like they've just come out of a Nazi concentration camp or something. So this is also going on whilst the genocide in Gaza is taking place. And what I wanted to say was that because this information is getting out, in spite of Israel's efforts, supreme efforts to prevent that. When I say prevent that, we know that, hundreds of journalists who are brave, heroic men and women who are basically sacrificing their lives and dedicating their lives to make sure that this gets out. Mostly, when I say these journalists, I'm referring to those from Al Jazeera because Israel, from the very beginning of the genocidal onslaught in Gaza, has prevented any journalists from the West or elsewhere from going into Gaza because they want to keep what is happening. They don't want it to come out. They know that if they had nothing to hide, they wouldn't stop journalists going in. But they know that they're committing crimes, and they don't want this to come out. So you have the journalists from within Gaza who were there from the beginning, the Al Jazeera journalists mostly, who have been reporting on the ground, and so many of them have been targeted, together with their families. So you've had journalists with their entire families who have been wiped out, not just one or two, but many, tens, dozens. And the total number of journalists who have been killed is vast. It's the largest in any known conflict in terms of the number and the concentration. Certainly in modern times. And so in spite of Israel's best efforts, information is getting out. Information has gotten out. And we basically see, for the first time in history, we see a genocide taking place on a daily basis, on our phones and through our computers and all over social media. We see this. And as much as Israel wants to decry this information getting out, they can't deny it because it's there. So the way that the Western media deals with this, who are part of this system that is facilitating and is facilitating this genocide and is in complicity with it. So the way that Western media deals with it is that it just ignores it. It just ignores it. There is the information is just not there in Western media. It's not. I mean, that's why Israel has banned Al Jazeera, for instance, from reporting within Israel, and even from the occupied West Bank as well, which, according to international law, is not even part of Israel. But Al Jazeera is banned from being there or reporting from there, because again, Israel's doing its best to stop this information getting out. But it is getting out. We all have everyone has today their, I'm talking about the people on the ground. They have their phones and they have their cameras, and so even from the grassroots, this information is being documented. And because the information is getting out there, it's we have slowly but surely a paradigm shift that is taking place. You have a paradigm shift taking place where, who would have thought that you would have had so many hundreds and thousands of American Jewish students on the campuses speaking out, crying out, "This is not in our name," and being central in the student protests against the genocide and against Israel's apartheid behaviour. You have Jewish organisations that are growing and growing, like Jewish Voice for Peace and others who are, if not now, and other such organisations. A film that's just come out, the documentary film Israelism, made by a Jewish director and producer, and again showing how the generation of young Jews in America today are increasingly and verbally speaking out against Israel's behaviour, and basically saying, this is not in our name, we are Jews, we are proud Jews, but we oppose what Zionism stands for today. And again, I am here as a Jew speaking out, saying that this is not in my name, and I urge all Jews who have a conscience and believe in the fundamental tenets of our morality to speak out in any way and every way possible, but to speak out and say, this is not in my name. Yes, there will be sacrifices you'll have to pay for doing so. My father refuses to speak to me because I'm critical of Israel today. I haven't spoken to him for many, many, many months. My sister's not speaking to me today either. The last message, I'm going to just read it out because it was just so pathetic, but she said to me, she wrote to me, how are you celebrating Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year? And I replied a totally, natural reply, without any form of provocation. I said, I wouldn't say there is anything to celebrate with such relentless bloodshed and indescribable suffering that Israel is responsible for. But if I am feeling up to it tomorrow, I will join a few friends for lunch at a restaurant in Lvov. And her reply, and this was the last reply I've had from her, was, how dare you even say such a thing? So I'm well aware of the indoctrination, not just of Israeli Jews. There it's impossible almost not to be indoctrinated unless you have a firm sense of your own identity and beliefs and belief system and morality. Because inside Israel, and I wrote an article on this a few years ago that was published in Mondoweiss. Zionism is it's not just an ideology, it's a totalitarian ideology. It's inside Israel, it's totalitarian. There is no outside. It encompasses every single aspect of life, from the youngest of ages. I mean, so it's inseparable from every aspect of life in Israel, from nursery school to primary school, to secondary school, to the, of course, the army, at every single level in your workplace. So if you're not the kind of person, and most people are not, most people accept what the narrative that the system is sowing them, and if you don't have that strength to think outside the box and to decide reality yourself, and it's not because they're Israeli that they don't. Unfortunately that's human nature. I mean, in the same way as citizens in North Korea, the vast majority would support their leader and his ideology, and be critical of those that criticised him, and elsewhere. I mean, that is human nature. So it's not that Israelis in that sense are unique in the way that they are basically accepting the tenets of this ethno-supremacist ideology, because the narrative is so absolute there. And when you're inside that narrative, and I can tell you from someone who's lived there for 21 years, it's like it has built a society that seemingly is so, it's not just all-encompassing, but it's embracing. You feel protected and nurtured by that kind of ideology. So it's a warm, embracing, and protective ideology. So you want to protect it. There is no the reality of having a perspective from the outside, seeing what you're doing to another people, the indigenous people who are there, and questioning the very basis of that ideology is never ever there. So the proportion of Israelis who oppose the regime is minimal. It's minimal. It's I don't know, just a few but I don't know who are actually anti-Zionists in Israel today. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know statistics, numbers, but it's, I'm sure it's much less than 1%, much less. It's probably in its hundreds or maybe maximum thousands, but that's it. So you have people like, you have a lot of people there who are liberal Zionists, but in many ways that's just as bad, if not worse, than what we call the right wing or extremist faction of Zionism, because liberal Zionism is showing a very liberal, acceptable face to the world, and yet their belief system is still the belief system that is encompassing and maintaining the ethno-supremacist colonial mindset in every sense of the word. So first of all, I want to say again that we all have, it doesn't matter about what religion you're from or what background, but everybody who believes in humanity has a a responsibility to speak out today. Everybody. But I think particularly, again, I'm doing this as a Jew because I want to dissociate myself from this narrative that's trying to, and this ideology that's trying to encompass me within it. And I think that's the same for all that you've seen with the American Jews in the movement. Throughout the last several months, and that's something that gives me hope, because if you have the younger generation who are basically allowing themselves to have some perspective on what is happening, allowing themselves to investigate from their own viewpoint the reality, and not just accept this reality that, as you're told, that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, and how Israel is this state that without it the Jews would have no safety, and such like, and Israel is a beacon of light to the world, and all these, and Israel's army is the most moral army in the world. I could go on, but these are very cemented kind of cliches that Israel has constructed, and that is used by the Zionist lobby and the Israel lobby throughout the world. But if there is any glimmer of light in this horror that none of us could even consider was possible, because as I began, it's beyond all consideration, it's beyond all language, it's beyond all possibility of understanding that such evil could come from any society in our world today. We believed that we had in some sense progressed. And I just want to stress that, as far as I'm concerned, and those who feel like me are concerned, this evil and this horror, it's Israel's, of course, responsibility, together especially with the US's. I mean, there's the complicity of the other Western nations as well. But what I want to say is that we all know that without the US's absolute and unreserved support, this could not have happened. So they are as much responsible for this genocide and for this horror, which of course is why no one in there, well, I'm talking to the American audience now, but no, I don't think that any American with a moral conscience should be thinking of voting for Harris in the elections. That doesn't mean, of course, that you vote for a fascist and dangerous individual like Trump, but I mean, the natural person to vote for would be Jill Klein. And those who say, "Oh yes, but if we vote for Jill Klein, then we're just wasting our vote." But you're not wasting your you're not wasting your conscience, your moral compass by doing so. So what I was saying was that there is a glimmer of light, and that is that that it's no longer possible for that narrative that has been so well packaged and delivered to the West of Israel's supreme righteousness, if you like, it's been shattered. I mean, the truth has come through, and it's changing behaviours. Okay, especially in the younger generation, but they are the generation that is going to count as time goes by. That is the generation that soon will be filling the posts in government and in the decision-making bodies. And that's, of course, I think it's obvious that's where the change has to come from outside, imposing itself upon Israel, because the paradigm, as I was saying, the paradigm of Zionism is so all-encompassing. It's not going to come from within, because there are those who don't really understand the reality in Israel, who think that the real evil here is Netanyahu, and that once he's gone, everything will be sunshine. And that's just so naive and ignorant. And it's just failing to understand the reality as it is. Because, I mean, Netanyahu is simply a symptom. He's not the cause of the problem or the evil. And yes, he has joined because he's a special point in question in terms of his character, which is repulsive, and he wants to stay on to clutch onto power at all means. So yes, he has formed the most extreme coalition in Israeli history with absolute monsters that are, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and their parties, which who basically, in the name of their corrupted religion, because Zionism is and has corrupted and it is corrupting Judaism. There's no doubt about it, and that's another reason why we need to speak out as Jews, say "not in my name" and dissociate ourselves from this. But even with these, monsters, and Ben-Gvir was indicted for terrorism. I mean, let's not forget that, for supporting, the Kahanism. But waiting in the wings, the most popular, according to the Israeli polls, the most popular candidate for prime minister. His party, and who has the most likelihood to form a governing coalition after when Netanyahu's government finally ends, is Bennett. And Bennett is, if you want to talk about degrees of extremism, he's far more extreme than Netanyahu. Yes, he was in government, in the previous government, showing some kind of pleasant face, because he knew that he only had 2 years, and he wanted to get more support from the populace. But Bennett is basically in the in the settler category. He unashamedly speaks out about the necessity for greater Israel. He unashamedly speaks out about how many Arabs he's killed in his lifetime. And they're all virulent racists, all of them. And it was only just a few days ago, there was some big conference in Israel where the Likud, many Likud ministers also took part, which was discussing the population of northern the colonization of northern Gaza, to populate it with Israelis. Which, of course, for those in the know, that's no surprise. I mean, that's part of the plan from the beginning, is the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. So all of us, we have a responsibility today. All of us must continue to speak out because, as I was saying, it's from the outside that this change is going to happen. It's from the outside that eventually the consciousness of what Zionism is in today's world will become untenable for all of us who believe in humanity, or in what is left of humanity. And that's when the real pressure on Israel will come to pass. I mean, I think all people who feel, who have this moral compass and want to believe in an ethical basis for our world today, we all hope that Zionism will end. And we hope that there will be a one-state solution where there will be rights, equal rights and justice for all people from the river to the sea. All people, regardless of their religion, regardless of their faith or their gender. And that can only happen with the end of Zionism. So this ridiculous rhetoric from the West to try to keep in place and create and maintain its monsters. So they'll use this rhetoric saying, these countries they want to destroy Israel. But what does that actually mean? Does that mean they want to assassinate every person that's in Israel? No. It means they want to put an end to this entity that is called Israel, what it represents today. So do I. And so do all the Jews that I'm in contact with, most of them, the vast majority of them. Does that make us all anti-Semitic? Does that make us all monsters? No, it makes us human beings. It makes us want to defend morality. A morality that we can respect, where human rights are respected. So yes, if you call that a destruction, because it's just words, but words are used and manipulated to try to create this kind of division in the West, so that they can justify the ongoing destruction of their, for Machiavellian purposes, of their, for geopolitical purposes. So yes, if you talk about the destruction of Israel, if you talk about ending the Zionist regime, we want that. But that doesn't mean we want violence. That doesn't mean we want civilians to get killed. No. We want an end to this heinous ideology. This ideology that values one people according to their religion and their faith above another. Values their lives and their livelihood, and is willing to humiliate, to oppress, and to exterminate, and to ethnically cleanse and the other people who get in their way. We don't want that. And so we will openly say we want an end to the regime that supports that. Thank you.